Hi everyone, it's me, Editor Chan. Today we're going to be going over the dialogue tab and the basics of how dialogue works in the game. Each character goes through multiple stages. One for each layer of clothing, plus one for the forfeit, and another 4 after they are finished and out of the game. Let's go over exactly how the game works. Gameplay is divided into rounds, which consist of a certain series of phases. For each phase, a single line of dialogue is selected to display along with a corresponding pose. Dialogue is divided into cases, and each phase draws from a dialogue pool spanning one or more cases. The start of each round is the exchanging cards phase, which uses lines from the swapping cards case, or if a player is out, lines come from their finished self case. After exchanging cards, players look at their hand and comment on its quality, which can be good, okay, bad, or anything. If a player is out, they will continue to display their line from exchanging cards. Next, the player with the worst hand loses and will have to remove an article of clothing. If I lost the hand, I would draw lines from my must strip self cases, while if another player lost, I would draw lines from must strip male or female, or the gender-neutral opponent lost. If the player has no clothing left, the corresponding forfeit cases are used instead. Next, the loser begins to strip. If it's me, the stripping case would be used. Otherwise, the appropriate removing X would be used depending on what they're taking off, along with the generic opponent stripping case. Or, they will start their forfeit. Finally, once the player has stripped, the round is over, and people make one last comment before moving on to the next round and starting back at exchange cards again. This continues until only one player remains. There are a few other phases that pop up from time to time, such as the game start and game over phases, or if a player is in the middle of their forfeit, players will remark about it in between the standard phases. By default, the editor categorizes dialogue based on stages as you see here. If you expand a stage, you'll see various cases that correspond to phases in the game. When you select one, the middle area fills with information about that case, such as the dialogue that plays for it. You can also get a preview of how the speech bubble looks in the game by enabling the Show Text checkbox here. Down here you can attach an image to a piece of text and add other lines that will be randomly picked from when the case is used. Dialogue can be shared across stages, as shown by the checkboxes up here. If I switch to another clothing stage and select the same case, notice how the same dialogue lines appear. If I change a line here, and then switch back to the fully clothed stage, the line updates there as well. Oftentimes we don't want to share lines for a particular stage, so let's split off the lost shirt stage into its own case. There are various ways to add cases, but here I'll separate the lost shirt stage into a new case by right-clicking. Notice the checkboxes only show the lost shirt stage, meaning it's separated. If I modify and delete the lines now, then when I go back to the fully clothed stage, you can see it did not affect those lines, and lost shirt is unchecked because this case no longer applies to it. You can adjust the preview to show a particular stage by right-clicking the checkbox. An alternative way to sort dialogue is to group by case, rather than by stage. In this view, cases that apply to the same game phase are color-coded to match. Cases that are shared across stages are listed only once, with a column showing which stages apply to that particular case. Let's go over how exactly a line gets chosen for a phase. Let's say I have dialogue for the following 5 cases. We are looking at the player lost phase, and I had the worst hand. The game looks over each case to see if it fits the current game state. We're not in the hand quality phase, so hand equals any gets thrown out. Everyone is fully dressed, so I'm not winning, so must strip, self, winning, is thrown out. I am losing though, so we'll keep that one. While I'm female, must strip, female, is for players other than myself, so that case goes away too. Same with opponent lost. So I am left with only one case, and the game will pick a random line from that case. Let's try again, but this time, Florina has lost. Again, we aren't looking at hand quality, so the first case goes away. I didn't lose, so the self cases are thrown out too. Florina is female, and she is an opponent that lost, so the remaining 2 cases are kept. The game will then pick a random line from either of these cases. You can give further control over which lines are chosen by adding conditions to your cases. First, I'm going to fill out the generic lines for my must strip female case. These squiggly marks denote a variable. During the game, they will be replaced with the name of the player who must strip. This lets you write dialogue without knowing who exactly the opponent is. Other variables are available, which you can see by hovering over this area. Now I'll add a new must strip case by clicking the add button, while my other must strip case is selected. This time I'll make a condition to only play if Florina is the one who lost. The player taking an action is known as the target, so I'll add a condition here for the target, and then choose Florina from the list. Next I'll write my line for Florina. I'll make one final case to play only if Florina is within a particular range of clothing stages. When I first pick target stage from the conditions, I don't get very helpful options, but if I pull in a target and choose Florina, then the target stage gives me her actual clothing stages. I'll pick some and fill out the lines. One last thing, I forgot to apply this case across all my stages. Otherwise it would only play if I'm fully dressed. Finally, I'll make one more condition case based on a tag. Remember filling out tags in lesson 1? Let's target anyone who has green hair. Finally, I'll fill out an opponent lost case. Remember, these can play for either gender. Now, let's see how this combination works with the game. First we filter out cases whose conditions don't match. Florina is not within the target stages, nor does she have green hair. We have 3 cases remaining. These will be sorted by priority. More specific conditions take priority over general ones. The case with the highest priority is the one that targets Florina, so that will be the case from which the game picks a line. If multiple cases have the same priority, then a line will be chosen from any of them. You can see each case's priority in the editor by referring to the priority column. As you add or remove conditions, the priority changes, so you can force it to resort by using this button. Priorities are calculated automatically based on conditions. You can also manually assign a priority yourself if you want to ensure that a line plays over everything else. Here is an important case to which I am assigning a very high priority. Once I click away, the columns update. A star indicates a manually assigned priority. The editor creates placeholders for all required cases. These appear blue in the list. Your first order of business then is usually to replace all these placeholders with real dialogue. As you do so, the cases turn black. Once you've taken care of all the blue, you can start adding new cases with all the bells and whistles that conditions offer. That's all for today. At this point you should be able to do the bare minimum needed to create a character. Creating them in the editor, creating some images for poses, and writing the minimum amount of dialogue. There is a whole lot more you can do to make your character stand out more, but those features will be discussed in other videos.